Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode number 43 of Hashtag Jeopardy Live panel presented by thejeopardyfan.com. Once again, I am Andy Saunders. I will be moderating the discussion this evening. We have quite a panel for you tonight. Let's get straight to the introductions. First up, the founder of thejeopardyfan.com, Jeanie Kenkel. Thanks for joining us again, Jeanie.
Hello.
We also have returning panelist David Kendall. Thanks, David. And once again, if you haven't heard and haven't tuned in a while, David and I will be auditioning in Kansas City in a few weeks' time. So I'm sure we'll have lots to say about that in the coming weeks. We also have three contestants from this past week. We have five-time champion going into the Tournament of Champions, Dan Feitel. Congratulations, Dan.
Yes.
We also have two of Dan's opponents from Monday's game, Victoria Machado. No relation to the Orioles infielder, I guess?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. Or Carmen, the Nebula Award nominee author, I'm guessing. No, not either. Not her either?
No. My family's from the Azores. We're not Spanish. We're Portuguese.
Okay. And then finally, we have from Tuesday's game, Tara Whittle, the curler.
Yes.
Yes.
I curl with
thanks for.
His name is Machado, though, from family from the Azores, so he could be related to you.
Well, great. Okay.
Interesting.
Follow up on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So first up, I suppose the big news, Jeopardy-wise, this past week, aside from the fact that we have another five-time champion, is that the Canadian cities category from Monday, it went viral in Canada. You may have seen it go viral slightly in the States going southward, but it was all over the news. Poor Randy.
All over? What does that mean?
I'm saying poor...
They've made dartboards with our face and they're throwing arrows at us right now. But to be fair, Dan and I did not get a chance to answer the Stratford one, which he and I may have known. We don't know that, do we?
I can assure you I did not.
Well, I would have guessed it via the Shakespeare hints, to tell you the truth.
Yes. Yes. So that's good for some redemption there. So, news people, Victoria would have known Stratford. But I mean, obviously, in Randy's defense, with the situation he was in, obviously he had to take guesses. Because, first of all, he was in a distant third, and second of all, and then of course after he missed a daily double, then his score was terrible, and he needed to try to catch up. So that's kind of why. I mean, I feel bad for him. I'm sure. How did it feel, kind of up next to him when for him going from 5,400 to minus whatever?
I mean, it's hard to watch that. I mean, and at that point, I don't think I even realized what a massacre that category was going to turn out to be at the time. But yeah, I mean, as soon as he started just buzzing in kind of willy-nilly, it's just hard to be up there, and you just feel bad, and it's unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt like I stopped playing at that point. I just felt so bad for him that I just was sort of paralyzed and didn't even react to the questions anymore at that point. He was such a sweet guy, and I felt really terrible for him.
Yeah.
I was in the audience like this.
You just do sort of feel like a team when you're up there sometimes. I mean, I wasn't feeling quite as competitive as I was feeling empathetic at that moment, which is kind of an unusual thing in the middle of a game like that.
It's when people start missing them. That's what I noticed. It's when everyone's getting the questions right, I feel like there's much more of competitive spirit, and you're trying to get the buzzer. But when everyone's up there and that this is tough for everyone, you just feel like, God, this sucks for all of us. And that one from the week before with the pediatrician on her anatomy daily double, that was like excruciating. I felt so bad, and that was kind of the same situation.
And I guess it goes back to wager strategy, because there were so few clues left on the board when he wagered almost everything he had. So I'd be interested to hear what strategy experts think about such a big wager at the end of the game like that.
I mean, honestly, I thought Randy did the right thing there. As somebody who kind of dabbles in strategy a little bit, I thought Randy did the right thing because I mean, he was way behind, and he felt he needed to get himself back in the game. So from that perspective, I thought, wagering almost all of his money was the best option for him. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. It almost seemed like he had the of course with the Stratford and the Avon with the Shakespeare clue for him, and then he kind of just self-destructed from there. But I mean, had either of you been forced to guess? I mean, Victoria, you said you knew Stratford. Dan, was there any that you knew?
I knew. I mean, if I knew it, I would have guessed. But if I was forced to answer, I would have gotten Montreal right. And in retrospect, I don't know how I couldn't figure out Moose Jaw. That was just like a weird. I don't know how to describe it. Blank moment. But I think had I had a minute to look at that clue and think about it, I would have gotten that one too. But in the moment.
But I'm wondering if where they got Winnipeg from Moose JV, and that's.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the other one I almost guessed at was Banff because my sister had her honeymoon there, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I just decided not to try answering it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did your sister therefore give you a bit of a hard time?
No.
Okay.
I think she knew the sports rules one because she's a big sports fanatic, but she wasn't giving me a hard time about it.
Yeah, the shot clock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really hard clue. I was proud of you there, Dan. I don't know how you knew that.
That was just a gift for me because I love sports, so I couldn't believe that was Final Jeopardy. So I don't know, I just knew it right away just from, I just knew it, right? I didn't have to figure it out or anything,
Wow.
which is always a nice feeling.
I would have gladly traded places on that Final Jeopardy from the next day.
Oh God, that was so
I
frustrating.
knew the one from the next day.
I've been thinking about that for 3 straight months. It's just
Oh my God.
frustrating. But yeah.
What was the final the next day?
That was it boiled down to who assassinated James Garfield.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was hard too.
Practically have it memorized. It's burned in my brain. And when the episode aired, we were at a party of about 50 people, and everyone had been shouting out the answers the whole game, and Alex reads the Final Jeopardy question, and a hush falls over the room. Just shout it out. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Like my brain.
Yeah. And I don't know how you felt about it, Dan, but I knew it was Garfield. I knew from the year, but I could not recall the name for the life of me.
Yeah, same situation.
Mm-hmm.
My big challenge with that one was trying to spell Gouteau right. I think I almost spelled it like gâteau, like cake.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that thankfully they didn't have everyone try to spell Chilgosh.
Yeah, Chilgosh. At least they didn't give us that one.
So I have a question for you right now, Victoria. Were you an alternate from the previous week?
No. But I know everybody's wondering if I knew about Dan's strategy, and yes, I did because it was mentioned in the green room by Maggie. Mentioned it.
Yeah.
And it
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And plus his 99999 thing, I thought, well, maybe he's got a fixation on the number 9, so maybe that's going to affect how he wagers. There were several factors in my choice for my final wager.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, basically, it was like, well, it was one of those things where it felt like you had to have known going in what Dan was likely to do.
Well, yeah, not 100% sure, but I knew that he wasn't going to wager in the sort of standard way that people usually wager. So I had that in the back of my mind. Plus my lack of knowledge of sports rules. I thought, well, don't risk losing any money and hope he does something strange with his wager, and it comes out in my favor. But it didn't. That's how it happens.
Yeah. As it turned out, he knew final, which made everything moot.
Exactly.
And as you pointed out to me on Twitter last week, Dan, the results would have ended up exactly the same no matter how you would have wagered on those, whether you'd wagered quote unquote the way Keith would want, or whether or not, or the way you did. So
I think that just goes to how lucky I was, on my episodes that I got Final Jeopardy that happened to be up my alley more or less. I wasn't put in a position, thankfully, until the last one where it would have mattered. So just lucky.
hmm
Wasn't there one game though where you had a lock and you risked almost all?
No, God, not that crazy.
Oh, okay.
Actually,
I thought there was one game where you risked a lock.
Sorry, what was that?
I thought there was one game where you risked a lock, but it wasn't.
No,
he
I
did
only
not.
lost that
Yeah.
wager 0, actually.
Yes, I think that was the day where Keith got a brief reprieve on.
Yeah. He seemed like he took it pretty hard. I didn't realize that this is like so much of a thing, people talking about the wagering strategy, but I quickly did realize that it's important to people.
Well, it's important to some people. I mean, definitely important to for more important for some people than others, I should say. But I mean, did you have the idea going in you were gonna what prompted you to just think, oh well, I'm just gonna wager everything but $1?
It was because going in, I was thinking of myself as kind of an underdog, and the fact that I was even on was remarkable, and I was just trying to have fun with it. And so then, at the end of my first episode, I'm looking at the scores and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm actually winning. Then I started to think like, okay, what's the rational thing to do here? And then I just thought, it's ancient times. That's something that I feel really good about. If I'm going to win Jeopardy, which I might actually have a chance to do, I'm going to do it because I got the Final Jeopardy right, and it's going to be awesome. And I'm not going to do it because I wagered some lame amount and everyone got it wrong or something like that. So I just said, screw it, I'm going to have fun with it. And I didn't I wagered everything but $1 because I knew that if you had 0, you couldn't go on. So I just wanted to have that possible tiebreaker in my back pocket or something. But it definitely did not make any kind of logical sense. I mean, I admit that.
So over the course of the your respective games, do you have any questions you got right that you're proud of? All three of you who are on this week?
Well, I know the question about the link between this and diabetes was very controversial, and there was a lot of complaining on Twitter about them allowing Jacob's response of autism. So, I don't know that I'm particularly proud of that, but it has been, there's been a lot of conversation. I've gotten so many messages from so many people saying, oh, I can't believe that. And, once I read, Jeopardy did actually respond to it on Twitter and say, here's why we allowed it. And I actually went, that night, I was like, let me look this up. And I found one journal article that showed a possible link. But they said, the reason, because they said it has been linked to, not, proven or, anything stronger than that. Because of the way they worded it, they had to allow it. So it just reminded everyone how careful they have to be in how questions are worded. So.
I thought it was quite interesting how it was the same night as the researchers doing the live tweet. So
was that reversal a result of any contestant complaining, or just the researchers doing a bit more research and finding, hey, maybe autism is correct?
No, they Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they stopped the gameplay after the Game of Thrones question.
Yeah, that's right. And
we stood there facing the corner for what felt like a long time, and we didn't know what they were researching, but
right.
I guess they were actively looking for it right away. I think that was 2 or 3 questions after.
Yeah, my impression was they stopped because the person whose job it is to reset the buzzers forgot to reset them after Tara blanked on Game of Thrones, and so Jacob and I were both buzzing like crazy, wondering what was going on, and so I think they stopped to determine whether they needed to do anything about that. and while they were stopped, I think they looked up the autism question.
Oh.
So I don't think any of us actually had asked for it to be looked into.
Oh, okay.
And on the flip side of the crowd, the Game of Thrones question is the one that I was just like, oh my gosh, because I could see every book cover in my head, but I couldn't make the words come out. That was, oh.
I could kind of see that just by watching you. I could kind of see that process. I could see it right there.
Yeah. And then the two of you were like, oh, we know. It was the craziest thing. I could hear you over there.
No, I knew I was never going to hear the end of it from my friends if I didn't get that one, so I was just praying that I had a chance.
Speaking of which, I almost wish we'd been able to get later on this week. I think Addison. No, Addison was. Addison was trying to ring in very, very hard on the Doctor Who question later on in the
week.
Later on in the week. Yes, in the film and TV vehicles, the TARDIS question, and it's like, yeah, he was actually holding his buzzer up for a rare time just to be like, see, I'm trying to ring in, they won't let me, but so I presume he is a Whovian, but
Me too.
oh, you knew he's a Whovian?
No, I'm also.
You are. Oh, okay,
I have a TARDIS backpack nearby on the floor, just so you know.
Okay. And I guess on the flip side of the gets you're most proud of, well, what do you want? Which ones do you want another shot at?
Oh my god. So many. There was in my first episode. Sorry, what?
Gito.
Well, yeah, obviously, but I mean, I wish I had known that, but it wasn't something that I actually knew and couldn't come up with. There were a couple that I actually knew and just somehow, on the spot. My first episode, Vowel Estates. God, I did terribly on that. I had H, and I said like Idaho or something stupid. I would love to get that one back. I'm sure there's a bunch more. Yeah, Pamela Anderson as the dead Canadian playmate. That was pretty bad. At least she's Canadian.
Yes.
Probably from Moose Jaw.
Moose Jaw, yeah.
No, she's actually from Vancouver Island.
Oh, okay.
And she was born on Canada's 100th birthday. It was Canada's centennial baby when she was born.
One of them. There were many people born
One
on
of
that
them,
day.
but I mean, of the thousands of babies born in Canada on July 1st, 1967, she was one select.
So, I presume that with 5 wins, Dan, you're going to be in the Tournament of Champions.
I hope so.
Well, I think most people who watch the show hope that if you win 5, you make it. But do you have any preparation in mind so far for that?
That's what I was wondering.
I found this thing the other day called Proto Bowl, which is like a website that basically just picks Jeopardy questions and puts them up, rapid fire, which I've been doing a lot, which has been fun. But I'm not much for kind of preparing for things like this. So I'll probably brush up on my presidents a little bit for sure. Maybe some Shakespeare and some other categories like musicals that I'm terrible at. But I won't do anything crazy probably.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I've heard of Proto Bowl, but I thought they did quiz bowl questions like what Quanta does.
I'm not
Quanta
familiar
being
with Quanta. Proto Bowl
Quanta was the quiz bowl computer that played against Kristen Sauceville, Ben Ingram, Alex Jacob, and Colby Burnett in Chicago last weekend and played the 4 of them in a quiz bowl match on toss-ups to a 200-200 tie.
Wow.
But
well,
so I think, but yeah, sorry, go ahead on Proto Bowl.
It's probably similar. Proto Bowl is just, I mean, it has quiz bowl questions in it, and you can go into different, essentially, rooms. You can go into like a high school quiz bowl room or a geography bowl room or something. And they also have a Jeopardy room, which just throws out Jeopardy questions.
Interesting. So you've been using that then to kind of practice, or practice since your appearance, and hopefully, or in hope for the TOC.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's also it's for someone like me, it's just kind of fun. I guess it's also practice, but I just kind of enjoy doing it.
I've been looking for something to practice in the car in the 10-hour ride to my audition, so that might be something.
Driving, David?
Yeah, I'm going to be driving.
Wow. I thought about asking you that, and then I just thought for sure you were going to fly.
It's cheaper to drive.
Uh-huh.
But, hey, it gives me 10 hours to practice.
Yeah, and 10 hours isn't bad. I thought it was going to be more than that.
Well, I'm driving from my sister. She lives closer.
Oh. Where does she live?
Emerson. It's right on the Canada-U.S. border.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
So just into a bit of, I'm just going to talk about a couple of other segments before we get back to some Jeopardy discussion. The This Week in Jeopardy History segment. Obviously, Ken Jennings, 10 years or 11 years ago now, won 4 through 8. But the big happening from This Week in Jeopardy history, June 12th, 1998. One of the few games in the history of the show that has had no winner. As the third place finished in the negative, Steve Sosnick, Robert Levy were tied at 7,600. They both missed final and bet everything, so on the 13th, they had 3 new contestants. Which is, well, of course, why they say 0 is not a winning score. Obviously, the influence for Dan's bet everything but a dollar strategy.
I was going to say, influencing Dan many years later.
Yes. But, once again, if you are interested in conversing or sending a question or a comment to the panel, you can use hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel on Twitter. I did promise that there was a bit of a cliffhanger question from last week. Andy Kravis submitted one right at the end of last week's show. If you could swap the 4 hosts of The View with 4 prominent game show contestants, who would they be and why?
The View?
Jeanie, how would you answer this question to start?
I'll let David go. I think he was about to
I was
say.
just going to say it would make me watch The View, for one thing.
Can I choose 4?
Yes, please.
How about our own Dan Feitel and Ken Jennings, Brad Rutter, and Watson? Those would be my choice.
Those are all men. I thought that was a woman's show.
Is Watson a man?
You gotta have Julia.
I think Watson's a woman.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I don't know.
Okay, so yes, I agree. I think we need to have Julia Collins.
Yeah.
Are we just limiting ourselves to women contestants? Or?
No. Prominent game show contestants. Julia
Harris.
Collins. Yes, Bob Harris is.
Oh,
two.
yeah.
Yeah, I like Bob Harris. Who else would make a good
Jerome.
That could
Jerome
be interesting.
He's
Jerome
in
Vered.
forever, so. Who else?
Who
No one's
else?
gonna say Arthur Chu? I thought he was
Oh,
everybody's
yes,
favorite.
Arthur Chu would be. Arthur Chu would be. I think he'd be pretty good. I can think of a few people that might rankle a bit, but not anyone that matters would be rankled.
Oh, I'm going to think about that. I'd also like to
Do you
see
have
on
any?
TV today.
Who wouldn't you like to see on TV every day, Jeanie?
Oh. I don't know if I would name names.
Okay, so do you have any plans for the for your winnings at this point, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, so unfortunately I've got, law school loans that I will have to pay with a lot of it, but I went on an awesome trip to New Orleans with my girlfriend a couple months ago, so that was a lot of fun, and I bought a TV, which is pretty awesome for me, but yeah, I mean, nothing too crazy. I wish I could do something crazier, but I have to do the prudent thing, unfortunately. But
What did
if I
you
wanted to
say
be
you were going to?
a
Sorry.
tournament champion, all bets are off.
hmm What did you guys say you were going to do with the money in your interview?
Oh, good question.
I think I said I would go to Vegas. Maybe I'll have to do that.
Yeah, the paying off bills is the thing they don't want you to say. I think I said that I was going to take my son on a stargazing trip to like Chile and go see the Northern Lights, things like that.
Oh,
I think I named the Galapagos Islands. That's where I've always wanted to go.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, also, because there are some auditions coming up, there may have even been some that have happened already in Boston. But for those of you who, for the three of you who've been on recently, what advice would you give to people who are just trying out?
Be yourself, relax. It's, I think one of the things they stressed at the audition that I attended was that it's entertainment. And once you get to the audition, everyone is really smart and knows a lot of stuff. So no one gets on Jeopardy and they don't know what they're doing. But it really is as much about personality and can you play the game and just coming across, some energy and some presence. So really think about how you project and how you project your voice and things like that.
Yeah, try to stay calm because I think there were a lot of people at my audition who were paralyzed with fear and they did not come off well, even though they could answer the questions. There's no way you could be, well, in essence, cast on the show unless you're calm and charming and have energy. I think that was the priority in my audition.
Yeah.
Dan?
It's not good advice, even though it's the most important thing you can do to say be calm, because if it was easy to just not freak out when you're doing that, no one would freak out, and it would be fine. But sorry, I'm just getting an echo that's making me have a hard time thinking. But yeah, just be calm. Try to be friendly. Don't tell like a really weird story. I had people at my audition. There was this one woman who I remember who told a story about how she like writes adult erotica or something. That, I mean, why would you do that? Yeah, keep it PG. In case you were confused about that. But yeah, just try to have fun. Try to relax as much as possible. Don't do anything super weird. That would be my advice.
Speaking of weird things that people say, Dan, do you remember Jacob's interview during our show? Do you recall that they edited something out of his interview?
Oh, he was talking about the play that he was in?
Yeah.
You remember what they edited out? I couldn't remember.
He said there were a lot of fart jokes, and I'm thinking, I can't believe he just
and that's why it was edited out.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that. That's funny though.
Yeah, I wonder how they were going to handle that. I'm not surprised they edited. So.
Yeah, I was interested to learn how much stuff they actually do cut. I mean, from the interviews and even just from the show, there were a couple times where I would have a little bit of back and forth with Alex, and it wouldn't actually make it on air. So I didn't know that was kind of the case.
Well, I mean, obviously they want to try to get in as many clues as they can. So if they find that there's a lot of extraneous bits, they can always cut those out just to make sure we get through as many clues. And that saves half the people from on Twitter from complaining, oh, we only got to 57 clues tonight.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't tell how it works, to be honest. Again, like my knowledge of how things go on behind the scenes was pretty minimal coming into it, but there's actually a guy who's coming by telling Alex, okay, we're at 22 minutes of whatever, tell him you have 1 minute left, go through as many clues as you can. And so that happens, whether they're gonna, they can't tell at the time, I guess, what's going to be extraneous. They have to say, okay, this is how many minutes we've gotten through, so we have 1 minute left to read the rest of the clues. So I don't know how they, and watching some of the episodes this week, I've seen, I think it was Addison's, right, where he and Alex would go back and forth for, like a couple of lines on some of the questions. What's that?
About the cloud, right?
Yeah, about the cloud, right.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought that was interesting they kept that.
Right. I agree.
So at this point, I'm just going to ask if any panelist has any questions for any other panelists.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Dan what you're doing now because you said something to me about being in Madison.
Mm-hmm.
I just wondered what you're doing now.
So my girlfriend and I both got out of grad school last year, and she's from just outside of Madison originally, and we wanted to move somewhere else after graduating, and she got a job up here. She's a psychologist, and so she said this would be one of the cities that we'd be happy to move to. So we moved up here, and I've been going through the process of getting licensed to practice law here, and right now I'm a volunteer at the State Department of Justice.
Okay, you mean Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That, with my knowledge of Wisconsin politics, that sounds like it would be a lot of an interesting time, I'll say.
Yeah, and I mean Madison is interesting because it's the kind of liberal center of a state that has a lot of red around it in the non-metropolitan areas. So you definitely get some tension, between the natives and the kind of government officials who are elected statewide, who are, passing all these laws and doing all these things that everyone here really loathes. So people are passionate about it here, for sure.
Do you have any other questions, Jeanie?
I don't think so.
I wanted to know more about Dan's betting strategy, and if he thinks that the Dan Feitel method has merits somebody who has absolutely no knowledge of betting whatsoever and has been poring over Keith's videos. Dan Feitel method is better than the Keith Williams method. Should I, as somebody who doesn't really know that much about betting, should I just go and bet a dollar every single time, or should I actually analyze the bets?
No, I mean, obviously you should analyze the bet. I won't act as though I don't realize that what I did was objectively stupid. I just the fact is that the three categories that I wound up doing that on were probably like my three dream categories: ancient history, American literature, and sports. So there were things that I already felt good about, and it was just it was fun. I didn't want to do something stupid, but I also didn't want to just be super uptight about the way I played. And so since the one time when I was in first and I got colleges and universities, I said, A, Alex has been blowing up my spot all week telling everyone about my strategy, and B, I don't feel great about this category, so I'll just do the smart thing, and that worked out fine too. But I got really lucky in that I could do what I did because I got good categories. And the show before I got on, it was the one about Rock of Ages, and I could have had 10 days to think about that one. I never would have gotten it. So it just worked out well for me that I got the categories that I got.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry, I'm a little sensitive about it because I couldn't help myself but look at what the reaction has been to my episodes, and people are really upset about it. I was just completely shocked that it was going to be such a bother for people. But yeah, some people took it really hard, and I apologize, but I do it again.
No, never apologize for winning $130-something thousand.
It makes it easy to deal with it.
Yeah.
But then now the Tournament of Champions is coming up, and you probably have less of a chance of getting your dream categories in the TLC. It'll probably all be like ancient Peruvian literature or something like that. So it probably won't be the minus one.
Plus, you know, the odds of me being in first place in Final Jeopardy are much, much lower. So, you
Mhm.
know, I wouldn't have that opportunity probably, even if I did like the category.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions at this point?
Yeah, I was wondering, did you guys get any strange things on social media about your appearance? Because mine was about the turtle I was wearing. There's a lot of strange obsession about that. But also a lot of complimentary things, too. But did you guys get any strange things on social media?
You know, it was pretty funny going through it. It started out, I think, a mix of people who appreciated my saying please and people who thought that I was, you know, boring or taking way too much time with the please and they wasn't getting through the clues. But I think I kind of wore down all of the people who didn't like how I was playing by the end, and so I just got like a lot of weird, you know, like teenage girls type solicitations. That was pretty funny. My girlfriend got really sick of, you know, hearing about like how many 18-year-old girls were gonna make make me dump her and date them instead. But yeah, other than that, nothing too crazy, I guess. It was really funny to see how people reacted.
So did you end up on the Jeopardy Hotties Tumblr then?
Yeah, I did. It was quite the honor. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I don't know. The whole thing was really bizarre. I'm getting all red over. I can like feel myself blushing over here.
Well, I'm sure your fan club will be quite happy to see you in the Tournament of Champions then.
Oh, I hope so. Um, yeah, the idea of even having a fan club is too weird to really contemplate, but you know, I hope people will be happy.
Well, I can definitely say that you would not be the first contestant this season to have quite a fan club going. I think, well, there have been lots of contestants who have received quite a following, so.
Yeah, I know that was the other thing. People were really pissed at me for beating Choyan because he was definitely a fan favorite in some circles, certainly, with his charisma and style.
You're never going to please everybody on social media, so I guess the advice here is for 2 weeks after your appearance, just don't even check social media, I'm guessing.
I'm sure no one will be, I mean, no one's even talking about me now anyway, so another week from now it'll definitely be, you know, back to normal.
Saving it for Tournament of Champions.
Yeah, we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, I think we're at about a good time. Does anyone have any other questions at this point, I should say, before I go into the closing?
Just a quick question that came to my mind, Dan. Did they give you any indication as to when the Tournament of Champions might be? Like, hey, try to keep such and such dates open?
No, nothing like that. I think they were talking vaguely about the fall, but you know,
Wow.
it's really I think it was not like there were no guarantees or they weren't certain about anything. It sounded like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
I know there has been lots of speculation from what I've seen from people as to when the tournament might be. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that ends up because there have been a lot of 5-time champions over the past 6 months actually. So that might make things very interesting. Even who makes it in, if any of the 4-timers make it in, might be interesting as well. But,
wasn't there one year where they held back a couple of 5-timers because they had too many?
Well, that was also surrounding September 11th as well, so they wanted to make sure they had a couple of alternates just in case people couldn't make it in because of flight stuff, and that was kind of a really weird time. But yeah, I don't think. Again, I will check to see. Does anyone else have any questions at this point? I'm going to check. The hashtag does not have any further questions on it, but so at this point, I think I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Thanks all to Daniel. Congratulations on your 5 wins once again, and hope to see you on television again. I guess in the fall. Also, thanks for your thoughts on your respective episodes, Tara and Victoria. I should ask though, Tara. You cut quite. I mean, your curling club seemed quite impressed with. Kind of got a lot of play on Twitter even with the.
So happy. And the curling anecdote was not the selected thing. You go through all the stories with the producer and you say, here's the one I'm comfortable with. And I even said to her, well, we can choose this one, but I know he's going to talk about curling. And the other one, and he's looking at his cards, and as soon as he said every 4 years, it's like, yep. So.
Of course he's going to talk about curling. That's why I don't have a curling anecdote down.
Absolutely not. So yeah, they were extremely thrilled, and I wore my little curling club pin on the show, so friends for life now.
Yep. So yes, and also thank you to Victoria for your thoughts as well. I'm glad we got to talk to you because I think a lot of people were definitely curious as to whether you had seen Dan's strategy before. But,
I've heard about it, yeah.
Well, I mean. I would say the zero bet in that situation definitely telegraphed that you knew what Dan was capable of doing. So.
I also knew he was a Better Call Saul fan. That's another thing I learned in the green room.
Oh.
That he was only up to episode 4, I think, when we were starting to talk about it. You were saying, no, I've only seen up to episode 4, don't talk about it.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys all respecting the spoiler alert. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yes, once again, for thejeopardyfan.com, I am Andy Saunders. For myself, Jeanie, and everyone else here at the Jeopardy Fan, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for joining us this evening. Have a great night.